Tonight I'm explaining how to make 3 different kinds of treehouse ladders. Each of these 3 ladders goes in a different location on the treehouse. If you want to build your own ladders, the design will depend on where and how it's used. Before I built and installed the ladders, I added a trim strip along the front edge of the decking so no one would get hurt on the edges as they climb down these ladders. The first ladder is made from 2 logs with steps made from 2x6 lumber. I first stripped off the bark from the logs and cut the ends to a 20-degree angle. This is considered a standard ladder angle even when you have a ladder leaned up against the roof of your house. Because I wanted the ladder rungs embedded in the logs, I had to figure out how to cut angled slots in the log. After lots of brainstorming, I decided to build a sliding V-block out of dimensional lumber, which could be run on my table saw at a 20-degree angle with my miter gauge. The key to making this work is the log cannot rotate from one cut to the next. In order to achieve this, I nailed a board onto the end of the log and then taped a small level to that board. As long as the level was even on each cut, this works surprisingly well. The material between the cuts was then cleaned out with a chisel. The ladder rungs were just cut from 2x6 lumber, but I wanted them to match the logs along either side, so I shaved off the front and back of the steps to make it look more natural. With a little extra persuasion, everything fit, and I glued and clamped the entire assembly together. After assembly, I had to recut the ends of the ladder so the angles would match exactly with the floor and with each other. The top was then cut and notched in a way to be able to mount it to the treehouse structure. For the handrails, I drilled 2 large holes in the side of the ladders with Forstner bits and glued in 4 large dowels. I then found 2 large branches and marked the glued dowel locations for the handrails. After drilling holes in the handrails, these were installed using a dead blow hammer and a few screws. The second ladder was a basic 2x4 ladder designed to be mounted tight against the wall for a trapdoor. The sides were cut to length and notched at the top and bottom in order to account for the baseboards and the treehouse structure at either end of the ladder. With my dado blade on the table saw, I then cut the slots for the rungs. In order to add some grip to these rungs, I also routed in a groove on the top and bottom of each step. After installing the ladder and having my kids test it, I realized that they still couldn't hold onto the rungs, so I took the whole assembly and ran it back over the dado blade to give them ways to get their fingers around the rungs. The third ladder was also built at a 20-degree angle, but this one was designed to be a cargo net rope ladder. After prepping the logs for each side, I made a long base out of plywood that was wrapped in the green outdoor carpet. This would hide the rope knots at the bottom of the ladder. After cutting the logs to length and adding some flare out at the bottom of the ladder, I screwed all these together with lags and screws. I also cut a log in half and added that to the base of the ladder. Next, I measured and drilled all the holes for the rope to pass through. I would suggest drilling these at least 1/16 larger than the rope size, or you may not be able to feed the rope through the holes. I then cut the rope extra long to make sure I didn't run out and started tying knots. The cargo net knot that I used ensures no slippage and will actually tighten the more you use it. This knot is made by taking one rope and making an S shape. The other rope is then slid into the top of the S and wrapped around behind the knot. The last step is to feed that rope through the lower part of your S. As you tighten and adjust this knot to position it on your net, it should make a square-shaped knot. On the bottom of the ladder, I drilled some oversized holes to hide the knots. The whole thing was finally installed on the treehouse using a few lags at the top. My kids and their friends have been thoroughly testing these ladders to make sure that they work well and they're strong enough to handle them. So far, they're doing great. Thanks for watching.